All right, I apologize for the puffy face and any difficulty I have in expressing myself as I just kind of woke up, still working on the coffee, and my mind has been going every which way. So I'm going to just launch straight into the thing that got my mind shooting all different directions. So I'm not even going to tell you how it came about, but like it came up. And so when I was kicked out of my parents' house, I was 17 years old. I was working at a restaurant. I was going to high school, as you do, and for activities, I was doing a lot of things, but it seemed like two of the things that seemed to cause a problem. Oddly enough, one was volunteering. I couldn't quite figure that one out. Um, One was a tiny bit work, a tiny bit work. At one point in time, actually, they called and canceled one of my shifts, and I found out by not having them tell me, but by noticing it on the schedule. So I had to talk to them. I'm like, you got to know that that was not the right thing to do, right? He's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, just don't do it again. This 17-year-old talking to like, probably he was probably in his 20s actually. I don't know, maybe 30s. You know, when you're 17, it's hard. It's probably hard to tell ages. So of adults, especially if they wear suits. Um, then the other two things was going to Mormon seminary, because it's not just okay. Mormon seminary is you go and basically learn about religion, um, but it's also volunteering. Oh man, my face is so puffy. It's volunteering, and it's activities. They're like skill-based stuff for men and women and men or women. You know, like you go do man stuff. Like we went to the skeet shooting range or trap shooting range and fired shotguns. Um, they didn't have much trouble with that, other than they used to just not let me, like, well, we're going trap shooting. No, you're not allowed. I'm like, why? What's going on? They're like, I don't know. You know, like I'm like, well, you know, control things, the control issue. You know, like I can't even know. I can't know because they never explain. So I can barely guess. The trouble actually really seemed to be with Christian Bible study, and that trouble didn't fully materialize, and I didn't realize the two things coincided. But they never showed much interest into religious studies. They said, you know, like, why are you interested in religion? Are you going to become a Mormon or become a Christian? And I'm like, I'm just interested. Um, it's enjoyable. A lot of people my own age, it's a new way to interact with people. The people in the religious community tend to be way nicer than the kids I meet in high school. I never feel like I'm in danger, you know, at Bible study. So I believe now, in retrospect, having thought about it my whole life, I'll be 55 in November. Um, I think uh, was they asked me to describe Bible study, and I did, and they latched onto the Lord's Prayer. Now I completely disregarded this. Um, I didn't pick up on it. So like they'd say like when does the Lord's Prayer take place? And I'm like, well, we're done at 7:30, so we do it starts like 7:15, 7:30. And they're like, okay, well then we want you home at 7:15. Now I didn't immediately say like, what, so that I missed the Lord's Prayer? I just immediately said like, oh no, you don't understand. It doesn't stop at 7:15. It stops at 7:30, and then it's commute time home. And I'm not the one driving, so it's like when, you know, people wrap it up and say goodbye to everybody, we get in the car and then we come home. So it'll be, if it's done at 7:30 and you need me home right away, it'll probably be closer to 8. They're like, no, 7:15, no later. And I was like, I just acquiesced, you know, like, you know, you're living with your parents, you just do what they say. And if they don't explain why, you just got to trust them. You gotta trust their judgment. And so one day I went to a Mormon, no, one day I went to Bible study, and you always go to different houses, host them, and this one had this tiny little room. It was packed. tiny little room with a wood stove, and it got to be a zillion degrees in there. And I also didn't realize that the people giving me rides kind of didn't like missing the end of Bible study. You know, like that was the social bit at the end of everyone saying goodbye and all the hugs. You know, the guys driving me home want all those girl hugs. Every single one of those girl hugs is precious. So I fell asleep because I was going, as I said, I was going to high school, and I think at that time I was working part-time, but part-time still meant getting off at midnight or later. I'd be riding home on my bicycle through a graveyard at like 2 in the morning. Anyway, I fell asleep, and my friend that was going to drive me home said, you know what, fuck it, I'm not leaving early. He's asleep, he's tired, he knows why I'm tired. He's like, I'm just going to stay to the end, you know, and drive him home. And like, so right when it was over, I woke up and I immediately went into a panic, and I said, you got to get me home right away. And the panic was so intense that the guy from the church said, should I drive you home? Should I talk to your parents? And I'm like, oh, no, it won't be necessary. It turned out to be necessary. So my friend rushed me home, and my parents said, you're grounded for like an indefinite period of time. Like no more volunteering, no more Bible study, no more Mormon seminary. It's like home, school, work. That's it. The trifecta. And I'm like, I can't. Like at this point, I remember saying like one of the reasons why is I was like, I had one of the guys in the in Mormon seminary was getting his Eagle Scout, and when you do an Eagle Scout, when you get an Eagle Scout, you have to do something remarkable for your community. And he was going to go to either a jail or a detention center or something like that, a place for people who have been arrested, and install a jogging track. It was going to be bark dust. He had it all worked out and donors and everything paid for, and I was going to work on it. And I'm like, I can't not do my volunteer stuff. I've already volunteered. That's how it works. And they're like, no, like if you want to live here, then you're gonna do what we say. And what we say is, you know, you're not leaving the house. They didn't say no volunteering, no religion. You know, they said you can't leave the house. And I said, well, I have to leave the house. And I kind of wish I knew what was happening for my dad at the time. Because he seemed real shut down. And all this took place like within 30 minutes. I was like 10 minutes late. Like within 30 minutes, I was having the keys to the house demanded from me at the front doors. And I was like, can I even have any possessions? Like, are the things in my room mine, or are you keeping those? And also keep in mind, it's dumping rain. And it's coming on 8 o'clock at night. And so, and I'm being kicked out of the house. And anyway, so I call up a friend of mine, and he explains to his mom, and his mom just flat out can't believe it. And I could hear him talking to his mom in the background. It's like, he's like, no, I'm serious. This is his situation. Like, no, they're not joking. This isn't a ploy. They're kicking him out of the house. And whether we go down there and get him or not, he and his stuff are going to be out on the sidewalk in moments. And so he drove down there. And so I pulled out a certain amount of possessions out of the house, have my key ripped from my fingers. I was offering it to them. I was like, no, you can have the key. And my dad was like, no. And I'm like, no, I don't want, if there's some sort of suspicion that I might misuse your house key, I'm removing that right now by handing over my key. And so my friend drives me back to the house, and now his mom refuses to have any of my things pulled out of the rain. They have like a 2-port garage too. She refuses to allow the truck in the garage. And she's not a bad person. She's not doing something to hurt me. In her mind, my parents are going to come get me the next day, and she wants them to deal with all my possessions being out in the rain overnight and just completely soaking wet. Which was not the case. They did not come and ask for me to come back. They had made a mistake. So at that point in time, I went full time at my restaurant job. I was falling asleep in school because I get home, like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then school's at like 8:15, and then we'd be out of there at like 3:15, I think, or 3:30, and then I'd go straight to work, and I'd fall asleep, and it happened so often that I eventually got sent to the office. I was not allowed to come back until I had a note from my parents acknowledging that what was going on for me. I said, okay, and like very sleepily, I just woken up in class. I wrote out the note and signed it and slid it back to them. She's like, no, your parents have to sign this. And I'm like my parents aren't available to sign this. I don't live with my parents. They're like, where do you live? Do you live like then your family has to sign it, like your grandparents or whoever you're staying with. And I'm like I'm not staying with anybody. I'm currently renting a room. And they're just like wrapping their mind around it. And eventually the principal came out, and like eventually I had like the attention of everybody there, and there were teachers there as well, because I think the teachers' break room was right behind me in the office. So you go in the office, right behind your back is the teacher's area, and then right to your right is the principal's office. And everyone listened to me talk about like, well, this is what my life is. And so it turned out a bunch of people in that room knew the church leaders of both the Mormon seminar, because at one point in time the Christian Bible study was allowed to come in the school, and they said, all right, we'll just go back to class, we'll touch base with you later. Then both the Mormons and the Christian community contacted me. They're like, do you need a place to stay? Do you need extra work? Is there anything we could do for you? Super lovely, super supportive people. I was then called back into the office and given the exact same routine. Like, do you need anything? Do you have enough to eat? They got me lunch tickets, which my parents had always refused my whole life. Which is another story. And there were teachers standing around waiting for me. And as I turned around, they all shook my hand. And I said, why is everyone shaking my hand? And one of them said, we are congratulating you on your emancipation. Now, I knew that word, and I've never heard it used in anything other than in a history book. My emancipation. So after that, I had to work. I worked full time. I had to work another job. I did a little bit of construction and labor, and I also got some temporary jobs with the Mormons, which was usually the most common one was working washing trucks. I can't remember. They were like some kind of work vehicle. We had like pressure washers and stuff like that. Can't remember if they were buses or what. Some kind of bus. Maybe they were for the churches to go out on outings or whatever, to go play bingo. All right. That's really enough of that. I never really thought I'd tell that story, but man, I was thinking about that story because if I went back in time, here's what I was imagining. I'd go to the restaurant, old man Earl would go to the restaurant and see me either hosting people, sitting people down and stuff like that. I'd say like, how you doing? How you doing there, youngster? How are things? You going to school? Yeah. And you're working here? You're part-time? Full-time. Full-time and school? That's a lot. Oh, you got more jobs? And you're volunteering and going to Bible study? And my God, you're doing a lot. It sounds hard. And you know what? Here's the thing that I know it must feel hard too, but like you are laying down a foundation of I never quit. You are laying down a foundation of never give up. And it sucks, and it's sometimes not, things aren't fair, and it's not always going to work out, and there's going to be a lot of unpleasantness, but as well as victories. So like, good for you. You're laying a foundation that the you in the future will be really grateful for. And speaking as future me, the man shed. A lot of people when I first started filming here thought this was my actual house. Future you will make sure that you never get kicked out again of anywhere. You'll have these nightmares of getting kicked out and living on the street, and you'll wake up in that little house over there. And no one's kicking you out. And then future you is also thinking about future him, and future him hopefully will have this house paid off, and will be able to probably take it easy, maybe work part-time, and not have to stress, about things. Maybe even wake up without having a nightmare about being homeless. That's all I got. That's all I got for this.